Good evening. This portion of the lecture will be firearm safety. We will be discussing the 4 main firearms rules and 2 of the ancillary rules. Firearm safety, in a nutshell, is the ability to operate and manipulate a firearm in such a manner as to not be a threat to anything except your intended target. To that end, we have 4 main rules that we must adhere to in order to be safe with our firearms. Rule number 1, all guns are loaded. There's a variation on that that says to treat every gun as if it's loaded, and that's a valid rule. However, I prefer to solidify it and make it more definitive by saying all guns are loaded. It's the same difference between treating someone like your friend and actually considering somebody your friend. So I prefer the definitive. All guns are loaded. If you internalize that concept, regardless of what kind of gun it is, whether it be a rifle, shotgun, handgun, spray gun, glue gun, staple gun, you will always treat it with the respect that a loaded gun deserves. Rule number 2, never let the muzzle cover anything that you are not willing to destroy. Destroy is a relative term. If you had advantage in your life to never have somebody either intentionally or unintentionally point a firearm at you, if someone points a firearm at you, they have destroyed that peace of mind that you have. The obvious is, if you have a negligent discharge, the tissue and the life that is destroyed is the person that is impacted by the bullet. So it's important to remember to maintain muzzle discipline. Muzzle discipline is a term you'll be hearing quite often through the course. I tell people as a caution to pretend that your barrel is 6 feet long, so that if I have the barrel pointed over here and I have to point it down range and I don't want to sweep my audience, I simply raise the barrel up as if I don't want to hit him in the head, and I point it down range in a safe direction. Okay? So we want to maintain muzzle discipline, and we want to make sure that we treat it with respect. Rule number 3, and this one is, in my opinion, the most difficult rule to remember because it is contradictory to what the mechanism is supposed to do. Rule number 3 is keep your finger off the trigger until the sights are on the target and you are prepared to shoot. And as a visual aid, we have a firearm here. You will note, unloaded. Okay, no cartridges, no cartridges. The reason it's so difficult to remember to keep your finger off the trigger is because the trigger is what activates the mechanism. That's where your finger is supposed to go. However, if you are not prepared to fire, or your sights are not on the target, or for some reason you must maintain muzzle discipline, the best thing to do with your finger is to extend it so that it is parallel to the bore axis, which is, in other words, pointing in the same direction as the barrel. We call this being in register. So you keep your finger in register, you keep the muzzle in a safe direction, all right? Only when the sights are on the target and you are prepared to shoot does your finger come off of register and onto the trigger itself. Rule number 4 is one we hear about every year that is not being followed. Every year we hear the story of somebody who's hunting. They hear a rustle in the bushes, they see a patch of color, they hear a sound, and they go ahead and they shoot and then discover that they have shot their relative, their friend, their spouse, and what would be a good memory turns into a tragedy. You have to confirm your target and what's beyond it. Most hunter safety courses will tell you if you see a trophy buck skylined at the top of a hill, you don't take the shot because you don't know what's on the other side of the hill. In a self-defense context, if you're wakened by something going bump in the night, and you retrieve your firearm, before you go out with guns blazing, you have to identify what it is that is making the noise. Is it a burglar? Or is it your teenage son sneaking in the window after being out with his friends all night? You have to confirm what that is. And if you do happen to have a confrontation, you also have to consider what's beyond the individual that you're dealing with. If there's a room that's occupied by, friends, relatives, spouses, kids, you definitely don't want bullets going in there if you can possibly avoid it. So you have to be sure, relative to where you are, what's beyond the target. Obviously, you have to deal with the immediate threat, but it's a consideration. You just can't go guns blazing into the situation. Now, As to the ancillary rules involve storage and the firearm itself. My advice is to buy the best quality firearm that you can afford and to make sure that it functions reliably and that you are competent with it, because every bullet that leaves the muzzle has your name on it and you're liable for where it goes. As far as storage is concerned, you want to have a storage facility or a storage device that will prevent unauthorized people from gaining access to it. Any number of lockable boxes, there's vaults that you can use that are only accessed by your fingerprint, and there's combinations of locks, keys, buttons, and dials. So you want to have a good quality lockable device that will prevent people from gaining access. Any questions so far?